It has been more than 25 years since I last visited my hometown. 25 years, 5 months, and 12 days, to be exact. I left a broken man at the age of 26. That was the day after I learned that my wife of 3 years was pregnant with her first child. Not mine, but hers and her boss's. When she told me she was pregnant, I immediately knew the child wasn't mine, even though she didn't try very hard to hide it. We were young and broke. The economy was tough, so I took a short-term job on a river barge traveling up and down the Mississippi. It was a lot of money for a young man, but I had to be away for 6 to 8 weeks. It turned into 9. We both decided the separation was worth it since, in those 2 months, I would earn more than I had in 4 months at my previous job. We were young and in love, convinced we could handle it. My wife managed to hold out for about 2 weeks before she started sleeping with her boss, David Hollister. He owned an insurance company, and she was one of 3 administrative assistants. As it turned out, she was the 3rd assistant he had done this with. He also had very good connections in our small town, so even when she confronted him, he just smirked. "What are you going to do, Debbie? Try to ruin me? Sue me? I'm not married. The local judge is my brother-in-law, and you don't have 2 cents to hire a lawyer." He gave her a severance package of $1,000 and fired her the next day. By the time I returned to town 2 weeks later, she was working as a waitress on the morning shift at a local diner. When she told me this story, her remorse was almost touching. She apologized to me for 15 minutes straight, then started insisting that we use my newfound $12,500 fortune to sue the scoundrel. "Tom, we can fix this. It didn't mean anything. I was just lonely, blah, blah, blah." She rambled incoherently while I stood silently, stoically. Her admission that it didn't mean anything suggested she had slept with him about 24 times while I was gone. She paused, and I bitterly laughed in her face. Turning away, I spent the next hour silently doing a couple of loads of laundry, then packed my things and left for good. Cell phones were a luxury in the late 90s, so she had no real way to track me down. I never saw her again or heard anything about her. Yes, I was angry and hurt, humiliated and broken. I would have gladly come up with a way to burn that woman and the scoundrel, but as a young man with little experience, I had no idea how or what to do. My parents had passed away. I had a sister in Chicago, so nothing tied me to beautiful Hannibal, Missouri. I worked one more stint on the barge, bought a used Ford F-150 pickup, and headed west. Over the next 2 decades, I carved out my path. Eventually, I worked as an accountant for a small company in Denver for 3 years, during which I earned a degree in finance. Since I was single, or at least living like a bachelor, I had plenty of time to study and attend classes, finishing the degree in just over 2 years. I had no idea if Debbie ever divorced me. I think she did, but I never found out for sure. With a few letters after my name and some money in my pocket, I continued moving west. I ended up settling in Bend, Oregon. I didn't know anyone there, but it seemed like a great place for a fresh start. Golf and mountain biking in the summer, skiing in the winter. It was perfect for me. I also figured there wouldn't be any significant migration from Hannibal to Bend, so I could start over. I opened a shop as a small investment broker, and within 10 years, I had 3 junior partners and a couple of admin support staff. I was making nearly $200,000 a year, and my world was developing wonderfully. I made good friends and went on dates as often as I liked. However, the memory of Debbie's betrayal still lingered, so I never seriously considered getting married again. I never told my full story when colleagues asked why I wasn't interested in having a wife or children. I would just shrug and say, "Not for me." Over the years, I thought about Debbie now and then. It was impossible not to. We had dated for 2 years and were married for 3. For most of those 5 years, I believed we'd spend the rest of our lives together. Finding out she had slept with her boss and carried his child was a huge shock. I didn't want those painful memories to harden me, So I worked hard to focus on the good in the world and to be kind and generous to those around me. Despite my good life and having left the past behind, I'm currently on a flight from Portland to St. Louis with a connection to Hannibal. Why? As it turns out, I had a long-lost uncle on my mother's side who recently passed away, leaving me a modest inheritance. His lawyer tracked me down in Bend. We discussed everything over the phone. And though he offered to handle it remotely, I decided on one last trip to the old homestead. So, at 51 and a completely different man, I embarked on a journey down memory lane. I'm a bit of a cheapskate, but since I'm inheriting around $40,000, I splurged and flew first class. Settling into my seat, I found myself next to a charming young woman, about 25, named Tabitha. She had been visiting friends in Bend, a gift from her mom for her 25th birthday. By the time we were flying over Nebraska, we were chatting like old friends. Tabitha's mom was single when Tabitha was born, but got married when her daughter was 2 to a high school teacher. Unfortunately, that teacher behaved inappropriately with some female students and was both fired and jailed. When Tabitha was 12, her mom remarried a local businessman, and they lived in a nice house while she attended high school. Afterward, she enrolled at the University of Missouri. 6 years ago, her mom caught her husband with his secretary, ending that marriage. After that, her mom decided to remain single. As we sipped wine, Tabitha explained she had an accounting degree and worked in St. Louis, visiting her mom once a month. She clearly loved her mom but found her eccentric. Her mom's choices in men hadn't taught Tabitha how to build stable relationships. While we talked, I noticed something in her eyes that intrigued me, though I couldn't figure out exactly what. She asked a few questions about my past, and I told her, leaving out my early marriage. I just never wanted to talk about that with anyone, especially someone half my age whom I just met on a plane. She seemed satisfied with what I shared and didn't pry. By the time we were near Kansas City, about an hour from landing, I realized Tabitha had issues with her father. We had only a couple of glasses of wine, but she leaned in more than was appropriate and was clearly flirting. When she asked about my lack of a wedding ring, she wore a look suggesting she wondered if she could catch my interest. I enjoy the attention from a younger woman flirting with me. I'm fit and reasonably sociable, but what 25-year-old is interested in someone old enough to be her father, right? Tabitha was now openly touching my arm and mentioned she had a couple of days off before returning to work. She asked if I'd join her on a trip to Hannibal. She thought she could surprise her mom and show me how much her hometown had changed. There was a definite romantic undercurrent. One of my favorite sayings is, "I might be unattractive, but I'm not stupid." When we landed, I bought Tabitha a ticket from St. Louis to Hannibal. On the short flight, I made sure we sat together. This small plane didn't have first class, but it was only 40 minutes long. As soon as the plane took off and dimmed the lights, Tabitha leaned over and kissed me. The kiss wasn't just warm, it was blazing. She also let her hands wander over my soldier, who was more than ready to stand at attention. Tabitha smiled and purred softly in my ear. "Oh my, Daddy has a serious problem. He needs some help. I'll take good care of you as soon as we land." I took her hand and whispered, "If you keep misbehaving, I'll have to correct you when we get there, young lady." I felt the warmth radiating from her as she whispered back, "I certainly hope so." We landed 20 minutes later, though it felt like an eternity to my soldier. I had rented a charming VRBO with a view of the Mississippi, not far from town. It was too late for her to call her mom, and neither of us wanted to part ways. Tabitha stayed the night with me. We decided she would visit her mom the next day while I met with the lawyer. We agreed I wouldn't meet her mom. Tabitha felt her mom might not be thrilled about her daughter jumping into a fling with a much older man, so we planned to keep it discreet. We stepped inside, and within moments, I gently leaned Tabitha against the wall, pinning her hands above her head with one hand. My other hand brushed against her shoulder. Her blouse shifted slightly as I moved closer, and our breath mingled in the quiet space. Our lips met, The kiss growing deeper, a shared moment of passion. I helped her adjust her blouse with careful fingers, and she let out a soft sigh, clearly appreciating the tenderness. She broke the kiss, insisting on taking a shower first. We'd been traveling for 7 hours, so I agreed. I offered to scrub her back, but she shot me a mischievous grin and said I needed to be patient while she got ready to make Daddy happy. Goodness, I thought, who is this spirited young woman, and could I survive the night with her? I let her use the master bathroom, which had a deep tub. I took a quick shower in the guest bathroom, and then lay on the bed, waiting. Tabitha emerged in casual yet playful attire, brimming with confidence. She leaned against the doorframe and teased, "We've been traveling all day. Think you can handle some fun before we crash?" I chuckled, feeling the warmth of her energy. "I think I can manage." As she caressed me, the rush of sensation was so intense, I thought I might just pass on as the happiest 51-year-old alive. For the next 2 hours, we shared a closeness, as if we had only 2 hours left on Earth. By the end, we were floating on a cloud of contentment. Drifting off to sleep with Tabitha in my arms, I knew she had some father issues to work out. But as I've said, being unattractive and being foolish aren't the same. I hoped this remarkable young woman would have a wonderful life, but right now, I was elated. I felt I had given as much as I received. In the morning, we showered together, sharing another tender moment before dressing and heading out for breakfast. It was Saturday and Tabitha knew her mom wouldn't be at work, so she decided to call her after we ate. Eric Hodges, the attorney handling my late uncle's estate, had agreed to meet me at 10 a.m. Our case would only take an hour, and he was being paid $5,000. Tabitha and I planned to meet later for drinks and dinner. She told her mom she was meeting a guy, but didn't share any details. She mentioned a restaurant and suggested I make a reservation, as it would likely be busy. After dinner, we would return to my place, and in the morning, I'd head back to the airport while she stayed to visit her mom. I offered to buy her a ticket back to St. Louis, but she thought her mom might want to take Monday off and drive her home. It was a good plan. We said goodbye with a quick kiss. "I can't wait to see you tonight, Daddy," she whispered. My thoughts raced. This was supposed to be just a weekend fling, but part of me wondered if I'd ever leave Bend again if she kept this up. I used an app to find Hodges' office in the heart of downtown's shopping and dining district. I parked around the corner and walked in at exactly 10 a.m. He greeted me warmly, and we spent a few minutes chatting about life. When he asked about my family, I mentioned I once lived here. I didn't go into detail about my past. When we got down to business, it was simple. My uncles will allowed us to skip many formalities. Hodges took my driver's license, made copies, and then read the will. When we finished, he handed me a check for $40,765. We exchanged pleasantries, and I walked out. Turning the corner, I saw Tabitha a block away with an older woman who had to be her mother. They were laughing, oblivious to me. They didn't notice as they crossed the street about half a block away and entered a clothing boutique. My heart nearly stopped. I realized I was staring at my ex-wife, Debbie. I hadn't seen her in 25 years, but I'd recognize her anywhere. Suddenly, I understood why Tabitha's eyes had caught my attention. They were just like her mother's. Tabitha and Debbie disappeared into the boutique. That's when I felt a cold sweat and trembling hands. I just spent the night with my ex-wife's daughter. All my old emotions roared back. Pain, betrayal, anger. A wave of laughter bubbled up, quiet and slightly unhinged. I recalled the times I had wanted to punish that woman who broke me, but eventually I chose to let it go. Now, seeing her face again, I realized I wasn't going to be kind or noble. A truly decent man might let bygones be bygones, but not me. Not today. I wasn't sure if I could avoid hurting Tabitha, but I'd try not to be cruel to her. Still, I would savor this moment of payback for Debbie. I crossed the street and waited 4 doors down from the shop. When they emerged, I walked toward them. The next 5 minutes wouldn't belong in a Hallmark movie, but oh my gosh, it was glorious. Tabitha. Hey, Tabitha. I called, waving. She looked flustered, since we'd agreed I wouldn't meet her mom. Debbie glanced at me like anyone would glance at a stranger greeting their child. But as I drew closer, smiling, Debbie's face shifted from curiosity to confusion, recognition, and finally shock. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my gosh, Tom. Tabitha was puzzled. Mom, you know him. Before Debbie could respond, I spoke. Hi, Debbie. Long time no see. It felt fantastic. Tom, what are you doing here? Why are you here? And how do you know my daughter? Mom, you know Tom. Tom, you know my mom. What the heck is going on? They both asked. Well, ladies, let me explain, I began. Tabitha, until 5 minutes ago, I had no idea that my deceitful, unfaithful ex-wife was your mother. We didn't discuss it last night on the plane, but yes, I was married here many years ago. Debbie, feel free to jump in any time if you'd like. No. All right, I'll continue. You see, Tabitha, your mom was my first and only real love. We were young and broke, but so in love. I took a job on a river barge for 9 weeks to make money. Every day, I thought only about returning to Debbie. When I got home, I found that my wife, who had sworn fidelity, had become pregnant by her boss, your dad, David Hollister. Both women gasped. Oops, I said. Debbie, you never told your daughter who her real father was. Maybe that's why she searches for a father figure. Anyway, sweetheart, your mom annihilated our marriage by sleeping with her boss, who gave her $1,000 to leave when she tried to confront him. I left town emotionally broke and took nearly 5 years to rebuild my life. Now, Debbie, I'll answer your question. I'm here because my uncle died and left me a small inheritance. I had no idea you were still around and had no desire to look for you. Why would I want to see someone who destroyed me? But on the plane, I sat next to a lovely young woman named Tabitha. We had some wine, got to know each other, and had a wonderful time. I guess she's still looking for a caring father figure, so last night, she flew to Hannibal with me and joined me for an incredible night together. I mean, it was truly breathtaking. I don't recall you ever bringing that level of spark or passion. I'm not sure how many times it happened, certainly at least 8. I don't know how it was for her, but I gave my all. And even at 51, I believe I gave her plenty of enjoyment. By the way, do you know how much your daughter enjoys being corrected? I'd say you should be proud because she sure knows how to please. Tabitha was blushing with anger, and Debbie was in tears. I turned to Tabitha. Tabitha, I'm sorry you're hurt and angry, and I don't blame you. You have no idea what real pain feels like. I admit I deceived you. I could have seen your mom and walked away, but I'm just not that good a person. In many ways, you can thank your mom for that. Still, I hold nothing against you. I hope you have a wonderful life, and if you ever find yourself in Bend and need a friend, I'll be there with no strings attached. You're a marvelous person, and I'm sorry you got caught up in this. That being said, I'm still open to having dinner tonight, with zero expectation of anything physical. Tabitha's expression softened slightly. Then I turned to Debbie. Your tears and heartbreak are oddly therapeutic for me. I never thought I'd get a chance to show you how you made me feel. Maybe now you have a tiny sense of what you did to me. I see it on your face, and I know it hurts like heck. Your daughter is a delightful young lady, and she's very good at closeness. I hope the image of us together haunts you. Goodbye, unfaithful one. I turned and walked away, feeling the weight lift off my shoulders, Debbie's sobs echoing behind me. Later that day, my phone rang. Daddy, are we still on for dinner? Tabitha asked, suddenly playful. I've been so bad. I yelled at my mom, and I need to make amends. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care